Parking almost here. We'll go ahead and get started with the item B, the brewery discussion. We're lucky tonight to have with us Marty Allen and Denise Brinson from Suwanee. Marty is the city manager, and Denise, my understanding, is the assistant city manager and economic development. Is that?
Correct.
And what else do you do over there in your spare time? All kinds of stuff. Y'all may remember some of us went up to Suwanee to visit and to see, I guess that's been pre-COVID, what y'all were doing up there. Yeah, it's been 2 years ago, probably now, maybe so. And they're doing a lot of great stuff there. So I know that we've had one committee of the whole discussion on this. After that, we had questions pop up about, what exactly are we talking about here? What does the brewery look like? Can we get another rendering? How many silos are there? What is the actual production space? And what does that mean for truck traffic? These kind of things. And, the food truck question and those types of things. So I'm going to let Marty and Denise go first. And what they've come to do is just talk about their experience with this project in Suwanee, what it has meant for their community, if any challenges they faced, and just kind of a picture of where y'all are and what that looks like.
Well, thank you. Do you have any particular, do you want me to stand over here? Do you have any?
Right there, wherever you're comfortable. Sure. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm Marty Allen. I'm the city manager. I'm here primarily to answer questions that you might have. Before I do that, I want to applaud you guys for the way you guys operate your work sessions and your informality, and that is one of the best ways of getting information. So kudos to you guys for this. And Denise is here. Denise and I have given various presentations. We've worked together for more than 20 years, and she'll step in and improve upon what I'm saying all along the way. I took down a few notes anticipating some questions that you might have. But we have been in partnership with StillFire for going on 3.5 years or so. And we've been very pleased with our relationship with them. And if Aaron wasn't here, Aaron can walk out of the room. I'll say exactly what I've said if he's here or not here. And they have delivered on what we were hoping for. It has been a very good asset for our community. You probably heard people talk about the different attributes that the third places can bring to a community. First place is your home, second place work, and then third place is those places that you socialize and get together and commiserate with friends. And breweries are one of those third places. And we've been really happy with it. It's open to the community, open to families. We have a park that's right next to the facility that some of you have seen. It's dog friendly, and it's a place that third place gets used quite often. I'll stop right now. I've got a lot of notes that I could go into more detail, but I want to respond directly to the interest that you guys might have. So I'll stop for a second and wait, see if you have any questions.
Sure, maybe talk about, and others will have questions as well, but the things that I was hoping that you could address are the structure of the deal, because there's been a lot of questions here about land lease versus sale and all that. And I know y'all basically gave discounted rent for a while, and now they're going to purchase the land. So I want to talk about that. The partnership with the community that you all have with StillFire and some of the things that y'all have been able to accomplish together. And then a lot of the folks who don't favor this are afraid of increased DUIs and that this is only a drinking establishment and things like that. And I wondered if that's been your experience. And so those are the things that I wanted to address, and then anybody else can ask.
Okay. And I'll try to take those a little bit in order. We really have 4 different agreements with StillFire and various aspects of the relationship. And I'll talk about each of those very, very briefly. The building that they went into was a building that the city owned, and it was a former fire station. The county was moving out of the fire station. The facility did not meet the modern standards. And so they identified, or they were looking for another place. We partnered with StillFire where they would lease the building from the city for a period of time. And then after a designated period of time, they would have a right to purchase the building from the city on a pre-negotiated price. One of the things that was important in the way that we structured the deal for us, which was very different for any other community, what they're trying to accomplish, is that we did not want to, we did not have funding to add to the building. Building was an old fire station. It was not a brewery, it was not a restaurant. It did not have the things that it needed. They funded the tenant improvement. What we were able to offer from a concession standpoint, from a recruitment standpoint, from an economic development standpoint, was free rent for a period of time. So it's a combination of free rent for a period of time on the lease, then rent kicks in at a negotiated amount, and then at a point in time after they paid a certain amount of rent, they're able to purchase the building. So it's a lease with an option to purchase. To help protect ourselves, so to speak, from unknowns, which are natural, not knowing what's going to occur, we placed certain conditions on the essentially covenants, use restrictions on it, so that we could regulate the types of businesses that it could be in the future. We also included a right of first refusal so that we can purchase it back. So if an entity somewhere in the future was interested in purchasing it and we were not comfortable with it, we would be able to purchase it back on a negotiated structure. So we have a repurchase agreement with this. We also have the third agreement are a series of easements that we have relating to the fact that the building is tightly interwoven with our municipal complex. Police station on one side, park, brewery, and our court building.
Okay, did you hear that? You might have to say that again.
Yeah, police station, park, StillFire, and then court building. And we share the parking in the various times that parking is needed. During the daytime, we're consuming the parking. In the evenings, StillFire is consuming the parking. And so we have a number of easement agreements in place for utilities, sharing, and that's something that we did not really know the operations and how it was going to work, but we did a pretty decent job of actually predicting some of those changes, and we've adjusted some of that through informal agreements to perfect it. But it's actually worked out quite well. One of the things that I would say that was surprised us is that organizations' cultural comfortableness with the flexibility of parking. A lot of businesses absolutely want to have a certain amount of parking, guarantee the parking. It's my parking, you can't go on it. They've been far more flexible with that, which has been very effective, because now we do not have too much parking and it's used at an extremely efficient level. Anything else on that, Denise, you think I should touch on? I'll go into as much detail, but I'm trying to do high level. And then the last agreement is really a license agreement, and that's associated with the park that is next to the brewery. And we knew that the patrons of the brewery would be utilizing the park, but we also knew that they had interest, they meaning StillFire, of having events and other things in the park. And so we created a license agreement where we formalized that, sure, you can have your customers take alcohol into the park. You can get an expedited approval for a special event. In exchange, you're going to maintain the trash. So we do not maintain the trash in the park, because what is the trash from? It's largely from the cups and the brewery. But the park is also still our park, and it functions as our park, and it is used by our community as our park. And that's worked out really well. Not to try to back up a little bit, we are in the process, before StillFire was coming in on board, along when StillFire was coming on board, of renovating this particular park, because it has been there, children's park with a traditional playground equipment. And we were of the thoughts at the time that it would be more adults that would potentially be using that park. So we were looking at it for cornhole and bocce and grown-up type of gaming. When the park, we took some time to actually build it out. When StillFire opened up and we all watched the usage of the park, we were really surprised how many families and how many kids were using the existing playground equipment, to the point where we scrapped our plans to change and remove the playground equipment. And in fact, our plans changed so much that we kept the playground equipment, we renovated it, and we made other improvements based upon that reality. We kidded around ourselves if when we were there, if we had started to try to take out the playground equipment, we'd have had riots from the kids that would want to get onto us.
And just so you know, that's part of the proposed plan is the brewery existing on an acre or so, and then on the rest of the space, with their input was a playground, a stage, and a pet-friendly area that would be our park, but have some kind of basically redoing that model that y'all have created there.
In fact, after when the brewery had opened and we had fencing up, we started renovating the park, and I got at least a half a dozen phone calls from parents who were at the brewery saying, "Can we get into the park? Doesn't we haven't started construction yet?" And at one point after it opened, I got a development authority members of his kid in the back seat saying, "Daddy, can we go to the brewery?" It was just almost comical because it's such a family-oriented thing, and the park certainly helps add value to that piece of it.
Yeah, and I'm not, I'm here to answer your questions. Is we had very similar unknowns, and so that's one of the reasons we were going to adjust the park, frankly. But it's really turned out very pleasant. It's that I want to keep going back to that third place. It is. I was at StillFire a few weeks ago on an afternoon on a weekend, and there was a little league baseball team having their end of the year banquet there. It was probably the best attended with mom and dad at any banquet that a little league team has ever had. But and I say that the parents felt extraordinarily comfortable. And as soon as the kids left for the banquet, there was actually a birthday party there of a number of different people. It really is it's not a bar. It's a third place. It's a place where people socialize, take their dogs, and it's a really open place. To that point, from a crime standpoint, I asked our police chief to run some numbers for me because frankly I should have done this, but I haven't. Since January 1, we've had more calls for served police calls at our local Taco Bell than we've had at StillFire. And the majority of the calls that we're having at StillFire are from parking. That if you drove over there, you saw that it's very popular. We're working to improve that. And for a kind of a comparable place, and I don't want to knock this restaurant because this isn't a problem, but it has about half the phone calls at our local Taco Mac. So we're not receiving any issues or challenges from that regard. We have not seen an uptick in DUIs or anything of that nature. It's been a very clean, smooth operation. Part of it goes back to that third place. As an operator, they know that the kids and the young adults and the older adults as well are there, and they're not wanting to convert it into a bar because that's not the business model that they're really trying to cater to. And I believe that it's working quite well. We have not seen any issues on that. I'll stop and wait for some more questions.
What about, there's a lot of concern that they're not going to serve food and that they're going to have food trucks, and what if the food trucks isn't available and those types of things? How is that?
Yeah.
Has it worked? Has it not? What are the issues?
Yeah.
Are there still outstanding issues? Any of that kind of?
We had the exact same concerns.
Yeah.
And we really at the time wanted to be a restaurant brewery. And we worked through that with the food truck concept. And it's worked out quite well. I know that with the food truck process that they have, you have individuals that follow the food trucks. And there's not many locations where you can get Korean on a Monday night, Vietnamese on a Tuesday night, Mexican on a Wednesday night, pizza on a Thursday night, and it's all high quality stuff. Pretty expensive. Food trucks are expensive, but you're paying for that variation. And we were talking, and I was one that was disappointed when the restaurant component, it still could happen because they put the infrastructure into it. But when this was early on, was more food truck driven. As I have watched it operate, it actually would be a very different environment as a restaurant with the brewery, and that third place of socialization in an informal way would not happen exactly the same way when you have to sit down in a restaurant. We were there not too long ago. We sat at a place on the patio, and we decided it was too hot. We then moved inside at another location. And then the band was playing, and we moved elsewhere. When you have a restaurant, you don't have that informality, and that's what allows the repeatability for patrons that then become, like Cheers, that then become very, very familiar with the people that are there and the servers and the whole experience. Long story to your question, the food truck process is working fine from our perspective, from operations.
And I'll say StillFire, we haven't, since they're not located here yet, they haven't experienced it, but very particular. And they are very particular about making sure that people show up when they say they're going to show up. And there is just as far as we can tell, a super well run. It's not willy-nilly in any way, particularly when it comes to the food trucks. I mean, they want that service provided because that's come to be an expectation. I can recall maybe 2 times in the year and a half that the food truck didn't show up. And when that does happen, because they'll also allow food to be brought in. And Marty's absolutely right. We've had many conversations. I wouldn't want it to be a restaurant now, because it's as if people are developing relationships in the community, that if it was a restaurant and you were seated at your table, you wouldn't be developing. So it's a very, very different vibe than a restaurant. Because along with Marty, I was super disappointed at the beginning. The business model, I won't speak to their business model, but from what I understand, it's a different business model to have a brewery than to have a restaurant. And it's not, when people hear the word brewery, it's become so common in areas that people have expectations of that casual vibe. I'll use that word. And it's excellent. It adds value to really the downtown area.
And I don't want to dominate. I want everybody to answer. What is it, since you're up there, what is it meant as far as economic development impact? What trends are you seeing that you didn't have before? What is it brought, or are there any issues? Talk a little bit about what the environment's been like, what is added, or any problems it's created.
We've had some things going on. Obviously, they opened October before COVID hit, so we haven't seen a true, sense of what that's going to bring. From everything from our events aren't totally back to normal, so we haven't seen what value that's going to add. In addition, we've had a construction project, Buford Highway, which is right in front of their business, has been under construction for the past couple of years. So it's not as easy to hop from point A to point B as it will be in 6 or 8 months. So it's hard to say what it's done from a number standpoint.
Yeah, with that being said, anecdotally, I can tell you a few things. I absolutely know for a fact, because we've spoken with them, that there was restaurant operators that were from out of state that were looking to locate in the city. Where did they go? Did they go to the local watering hole? They stop by, they see the energy, they see the vibrancy. They have since this company purchased a a building, a restaurant building that was going south and are renovating it as we speak and should open up in January. That would not have happened without
And actually,
the brewery.
StillFire referred them.
Secondly, another one that I know personally anecdotally, we have recruited recently a co-working facility in the downtown, and they would not have come there without the brewery. They had visited us a couple of years before, and there wasn't enough there for their users, and we coaxed them back out. StillFire was up and operating, and boom, we changed the dynamic of their expectation. So anecdotally, it's been a very, very positive. Numbers wise, that's a lagging indicator.
I don't have any more questions right now. I hope others do.
As it is.
Across, directly adjacent, no one across the street of Buford Highway, there are apartments and townhomes. And that's one of the things that we did have at one point. We had early on, when you're trying to figure everything out, they had located their band at a location that was facing, and we adjusted it, they've adjusted it, we fixed it. And so distance-wise, the closest residents from it, as the crow flies, probably 100 yards one way and another 100 yards, about 100 yards each way.
Yeah, there's probably within walking distance, 700-800 residential units within a quarter of a mile.
How often do you, oh, that's another question. On your
Apartments and townhomes and condos.
your buyback negotiations and terms, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. And that took a lot of trying to figure it out. So there's a couple of different components to the repurchase. There's a repurchase agreement and there's a right of first refusal. So take an operation that would potentially want to buy the location. They approach StillFire. StillFire, in theory, comes to an agreement that they're satisfied with. Before they can sell it, they have to offer that same agreement to our DDA. Our DDA is technically the owner. I'm speaking for the DDA, by the way. And so the DDA then has a period of time to match that, that deal. We have a repurchase agreement, and frankly, I didn't brush up on the details of that as much as I probably should, because it's something that wouldn't present itself for some period of time. But it's a repurchase, and Aaron might be able to remember it a little bit. Okay, now I'm all right. The repurchase is associated with the right of first refusal. The other deal that we have, and this is the detail, is we have a lease in place. They pay a certain amount of rent, and then they have the right to purchase it from us because they don't own it yet. We have established a floor of the cost, a ceiling of the cost, and we both get appraisers and match that.
For the property.
It's for the property. I know I answered two different questions, but I think I answered one question, but it's kind of related to the other.
There's also, I mean, because they don't have their own parking relates to all this too. I mean, they're going to own basically the footprint with a strip of parking. So there's some controls in that.
Yeah, we have, we also, they cannot sublet it unless our DDA, our DDA approves of subletting. Those were, I have to remember, those were created in time long before the business was operating and successful. And so while I am very happy that those were placed in there, I don't think that many of those will be exercised in my tenure at the city.
Other questions?
I have a question. Does their facility there have an event space?
Not in event space. They have the ability to use the facility as an event facility. They are closed on Mondays. I believe that they offer that up to the community to have events. They have the ability to also, in a very quick way of leasing our park from us. That's what the license agreement does, is it sets out certain expectations. So in theory, they could lease that out and use that. We would get compensated for that, but it's not a dedicated event space. I think like they may be thinking about at the other location.
One other thing on their event space, by the way, my daughter's having her wedding reception there on a Monday night, so looking forward to that. As far as events go, the large park, Town Center Park, is right across the street from StillFire, and we do a lot of events for about 40 or so annually. They have a handful of events that they do, but there's a great working relationship in coordinating. Like, we give them a list of when our events are for the year so that they don't plan some, event on their own at the same time that our events are going.
That sounds very similar to what we're creating here, because we're redoing the area adjacent to where the brewery would go as green space, interactive space, and then the events would be there.
Right.
And then the park would be literally right across the
Yeah,
street.
you don't want competing
Right.
voice bands, things like that going on, and it's super easy to work with. We have a liaison that I think you probably talk weekly just to get a handle on what's going on.
How wide is Buford Highway? How many lanes?
Yeah, it's 2 lanes. Right now, we're in the process of reconstructing it, where it's going to be 2 travel lanes, on-street parking, bike lanes, street trees, and urban streets.
And they're on one side.
They are on the other side, and we have a pedestrian hawk, which is a pedestrian activated. And that's how the majority of people go from the park center to the brewery and their other park.
Austin, Lewis, anything you all want to ask?
I'm thinking on the city side,
Yeah.
and you've answered actually a couple of the questions that I had straight out the gate.
Yeah.
One of the things that, just a closing comment from me, it's like an added venue. It's not a venue. It's not a, concert venue or anything like that, but it's an added reason for people to come to downtown that wasn't there before. And because of their kind of commitment to excellence, I'll say that, I don't say that lightly. We're very pleased with the quality of the interior, exterior, how they produce events that they do. Their beer is very good. I don't know about what the distillery will be like, but just the working relationship has been very, very pleasing. And I can't say that about all people who even run our park. So I'll just close on that from me.
Some of the concerns that have, come our way, talk about, odors emitted from the production process, safety concerns, truck delivery, truck traffic, all those kind of things. What have y'all experienced?
I have not gotten one call about any of those things. Have you?
No. Did we have conversations and
Yeah.
concerns along the way beforehand? Absolutely,
Yes.
we did. I think those are, but none of those have manifested themselves at all. It's not your 1970s smoky bar.
It's not the bar of yesterday.
And two of our council members they don't drink, and they're some of the biggest supporters because they see the value that it's adding to the community. And
But it's real. Oh, God, I'm sorry.
those details about the odors and things of that nature, those are important things to be mindful of. They are, and it sounds like we're trying to pitch for these guys. We're really not. We're really independent. And I didn't even know Aaron was going to be here, frankly. They have not materialized because the operators are not interested in having those problems for themselves.
I'd probably be more effusive if he wasn't here, but I don't want him to get a big head or anything.
I guess I will.
Oh, you know what I'm
Absolutely.
saying? It's really good that we overanalyze stuff, and Aaron will tell you that to death. But because we did, it's not an issue, and expectations were set, et cetera. So it's very good that you're doing that. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, you're fine. You kind of implicitly answer this question, but just thinking about the timeline of when the brewery came on board, had a map view of kind of all the other stuff going on down there. Any concerns from, any of these already established businesses in place as it was coming on board, or in the wake of it being opened up? What are they? If there are any?
Not a one.
Concerns? No.
Okay.
The police department had a concern.
Yep.
Just, wow, we're gonna have a brewery next door. That's interesting. But,
Park.
yes, it's the police department, it's the parking, doesn't it?
One shift change.
Rigs, you could use the small parking area and then the court building, but the buildings are close together. It's not-
Mayor, we've got a vacant lot right next to the fire station. We can build.
But I think it's a great story to have a brewery between the station and.
The big difference, y'all, and at least my viewpoint of this is, y'all had an old building that you really wanted to put somebody in. We have one of the last pieces of vacant land in the city of Smyrna, right in front of our community center, that just quite frankly, I don't want to put a brewery in front. So that, from my viewpoint, that's the.
Sure.
And the other thing, I guess, listening to what they're saying is with the parking, well, I'll take this off. That you said shared use parking with the court, your court building and your police station, or, in the park. But in our case, the community center uses are after hours a lot at night, also, because you have the gymnasiums and the event center in there as well. And so I see those things being, happening at the same time versus a different time.
Sure.
Right?
Also building a parking deck though, so that, that will take care of any problems.
I have no idea how it works. I'll just add this in. One thing that I've learned, is people will park a long ways and walk to a brewery. And
Maybe they could park at the fire station.
that people park across the street and walk, and they take their dogs, and it's just kind of it's a third place. It's not you're going to a dinner and sitting down the exact same. You're going there to meet your friends and socialize.
One of the things, just it doesn't address your concerns, but it's might be a different way to look at it. It's actually more of an amenity than a brewery or a drinking spot.
I like the brewery.
Yeah.
I just don't like where it is.
Sure. Yeah, I can't opine on that.
And to that point, Aaron, I'm glad you're here because I wanted to ask, some of the concern is that the facility in Suwanee is, you can, whatever you want to do. It's 8,000 square feet, right? And this is going to be 28,000 square feet. Is that right? Is that about right? But
So
talk about the actual, and that this is, this has been pitched as from people who are against it as a industrial beer factory. I think we can all look at this rendering and understand that that's not the case, but the number of silos has been a question. The actual production space versus taproom space. Talk a little bit about what it's actually going to look like.
Yeah, so the square footage, the actual floor plan of the proposed project as it is now is only 12,000 square.
We have that in front of us. Okay.
And the way that it gets to be 24,000 square feet is, well, on the front half, we're going to proposing 3 floors, right? So that's, 6, 6, 6, then the back half. So I think there's some misconception there about the size of it. I've seen some models on Facebook where there's a 28,000 square foot floor plan being proposed.
And a brick.
And a giant, that's not the case, obviously. The production half of it, there's been some question about what our capabilities production wise are. Currently in Suwanee, we have 4,500 square feet about of back of house space where we have equipment where we actually produce the manufactured beer. In the proposal that we have here, it's 8,000 square feet. So it is larger than what we currently have. It is not a production facility, an industrial warehouse where that's not what it is. We will have capability of producing more than we currently do here than we do in Suwanee, but it is not this behemoth that maybe some people have in their heads of this giant production facility.
Talk about then what that means as far as delivery trucks and things like that going in and out of there in Suwanee, the types of trucks. And I think we addressed this last time. It's more box trucks than anything else.
The type
What that would mean here.
Yeah, the type of trucks won't change. We have a box truck that, like I've mentioned, past once a week that picks up and takes our beer from our distributor, our wholesaler. That's by the law, that has to happen. They have to come pick it up, take it to their facility, and then distribute it to retailers. So if you imagine that if we were producing double, which it's not even double the space because of production capabilities, maybe there's 2, maybe 3 same size box trucks, maybe they're maybe more frequent. There's not going to be this 18-wheeler Sweetwater truck you're seeing pulling into StillFire to pick up 1 billion pounds of beer. I mean, that's just not the reality. We wouldn't have the capability or the possibility of doing that in this facility as laid out.
And I know the initial, puzzle piece cutout that we put on that space has 6 circles on it that represented silos. That's been a big.
Wish you never showed that.
I wish we never would. So tell me how many silos you'll have. How will they be screened? What will they look like? I know we've talked about that y'all will partner with the arts community.
Yeah, so we have a silo currently in Suwanee, and how we see this is we would need probably 2 of those with this facility. And the reason for that, and we kind of talk about odors and smells, is the process of getting spent grain in the brewing process out currently is we shovel it out into bins that we cap, and we have a farmer come and pick it up in a truck, and we load that truck up with a forklift once a week, and they haul off the spent grain. They use it for feed for animals and stuff like that. Fertilizer, it's great for that. The second silo is for us to be able to basically automate that process where it sucks out the spent grain into a silo, so that if a farmer or somebody else was coming to partner with us and take that away, it's much more manageable and efficient. Also, it's sealed. There's no odors. The thing that maybe smells the most in a brewery is spent grain. Again, they haven't mentioned anything about that smell. It's less smelly if there is a
smell.
Well, right. So it's capped, it's solid. And my goal, and we put our logo and branding on the silo in Suwanee. We asked these guys if they wanted to partner and do some kind of mural on the silo. They passed, and we ended up putting our branding on it, and they were okay with that. They approved that. My proposal to make this work, make more people feel more comfortable, is to give the same offer to you guys. I want to partner with the local art community. I want to put a cool mural that isn't, I've seen people comment about, oh, that's the first thing you're going to see when you're coming down Atlanta Road. Well, I want it to be a beautiful mural of art, of something that we collaborate with the city, or let the art community go ham at it. I don't care. I want it to look beautiful. I want it to look awesome. So
I want to ask Aaron to.
If Robert Harrison was here, his head would explode.
I'm going to ask Aaron to cover his ears for a minute.
Earbuds.
Okay. If we had the land that we wanted something done with, if we owned the land, this group, including the owners, which are they are marketing people. They are, like I said, a commitment to design and excellence. They would be one of the groups that we would go to for that. And I don't say that lightly. They've done a really great job, and again, their commitment to excellence and in design and implementation of the relationship with us has been very good. And I don't say that. That's why I said I don't want him to get a big head. So
You're not going to be able to get out of here, are you? Your head's so big.
but it would be, but it would not I personally would not hesitate having a prime piece. This is a prime piece. And if we had another one, I wouldn't hesitate.
Question about the group that the money behind this. Talk a little bit about them. What's where are the venture capitalists, or what's the money?
no, I've heard that get floated around. That
Where's the money coming from? I guess it's
my uncle is one of the partners. We have two couples that are partners with, and then myself, the 5 of us. It is my aunt and uncle, and then it is another local couple from Swanee that started the Swanee Magazine, the Swanee Beer Festival. They live locally in Swanee. They own their own marketing firm right outside the city limits of Swanee and Beaufort, but they facilitate all the Swanee things there. So my uncle and aunt live in Beaufort. So that was kind of a local thing, how we factioned that. My uncle, his day job, if you will, is he's a managing operator of Dynacraft bicycles and battery operated vehicles. If you've ever seen a Tonka truck in Walmart that's battery operated for the kids, or a Princess carriage, they produce those and license them out. So he's got his money from that side of his career. Randall and Angie, the other partners, they run their own successful marketing firm and design firm out of Swanee and Beaufort. How this whole thing started, I mean, I've talked a little about the inception of the name StillFire and still have that passion, but really, my uncle and Randall came to me because this was about building something and having something for me to run with. That's why you see me in here all the time. That's why I'm the front-facing person, because eventually this is my baby, and this is what I want to take off the ground and continue to be successful. These guys, they are successful. They are willing to back me, but it's family operated and locally operated. No venture capitalists. We're not coming in trying to buy a plant and flip it. And I understand the concern, absolutely. I bought land and a house here because this is where I wanted to plant my flag and put this brewery, because if you see the rendering, it's something that I am super proud of, and hopefully we can make happen. So
The fact that they're partially owned by a marketing company is actually really good for branding for your city, to have the StillFire location being in Swanee, gets the Swanee name out there. I mean, I guess it was a side goal to have a brewery in Swanee at some, because it's a cool thing to have your city associated. Do you have any other breweries?
By the river. And
Okay. But they do a great job of marketing. They are a grade A marketing firm. So that helps with the branding of your city if you're interested in that.
Are we interested in that, Andrea?
I think we're interested.
Okay.
I mean, Swanee Beer Fest. Have you heard of the Swanee Beer Fest? Yeah.
Any other questions? Austin, anything? Glenn? Tim, are you still with us?
Tim was with it.
Is that picture right there?
Has-
I can see that.
that's the branding rendering. So yeah, I'll just touch on this real quick. Last time we spoke, there were some concerns of people being able to visualize the space a little bit. And there were some requests for another rendering to be shown. I did come back to the architects one last time. So I need something from another angle to kind of show the flow and the nature of things. And he talks about the third place. We really tried to show like the food truck bays that would slide open, where your trucks would pull in, like a food little court area where you could have multiple trucks. There's not going to be a shortage of food or food options. You got the park hopefully connected to the city's land with the dogs and the people. And there'll be obviously some development there on that side, hopefully from you guys.
So we're looking at it basically from where the roundabout is now.
This is like if you're coming from
Atlanta Road's on the other side.
That's right.
Yeah.
What's the overall height on your roof line?
I don't have that off the top of my head, and in full transparency,
I mean, I wasn't trying to stop you. Can you find out?
I can find out. And actually to that point, and I don't want to make any promises on this because this is what we're proposing and I want to get approved. We understand that that is a tall, big building. With that comes a lot of expense, and we've thrown out some numbers of what this investment is going to take to make realized. We understand that maybe it is a little big, and we are even considering internally about, does it need to be 3 stories? Maybe it only needs to be 2 stories to get the effect and what we're trying to do. So I want to say that with tempered expectations of, this is what we're trying to pass right now. It ain't going to be any bigger than this, I can tell you that.
And Mayor,
I think it's going to start going like this.
I'll keep reminding everybody, any kind of improvement that goes on in downtown has to go through the Urban Design Commission process, et cetera. We've warned Aaron about that as well. So
Tell my architects not to get too
Yeah,
excited
exactly.
about running free with whatever.
So I understand.
Y'all have an Urban Design
Other
Commission?
people have to look at it.
Because it was a city project where we were closer, the Urban Design Commission were at these 2.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
It was an existing building as well. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. Any other questions from Marty, Denise, or Aaron?
I got a couple of questions, and just the size and all this stuff is big, is huge. I do want to ask you to just kind of give us some details. You mentioned a little bit about it, but didn't want to go into it. I respect that, but about the business model, about the whole restaurant thing. If you could kind of speak to that a little bit. And then the next question, perhaps related to that, give me a sense of your production here, like 2 stills, 5 stills, 8 stills, 20. I have no idea what you're talking about. What exactly are you
Like in
how much are you? Yeah, how much are you making? Where's that? What are your capacities on
So
what you do?
right now, like in 2021, we produced and sold between both distribution and the tap room, 1,500 barrels of beer for reference.
Is most of your stuff in-house or distribution? For this?
So of the 1,500, we sold on premise 1,100 of that 1,500 on site, direct to consumer. Only 400 of that 1,500 was taken from the production side out into distribution and retail. That's not our business model. Our business model is destination experience. That's what we're good at. That's what we know. The added benefit of production is a nice revenue stream for us, and also marketing and get people that aren't from Smyrna or Swanee to know who we are. Oh, I tried that beer, Taco Mac and Marietta. I need to go check these guys out.
And it maybe helped during COVID because
It was a godsend during
it may have been more than what you originally planned for the back.
Right. So 1,500 barrels, you can look at you can Google it or what Georgia production levels are. We're considered a microbrewery, and that's for a reason. I mean, it is small potatoes. Gate City and Roswell does double what we do at the one location right now. I mean, we are not a giant producer. The number of tanks, you may walk in our brewery and get like, whoa, what? It's like, well, there's fermentation tanks, there's bright tanks, there's brewing tanks, there's hot and cold liquor tanks. They all have a purpose, but there's not beer in all of those tanks, and they're not all going at the same time. I mean, that's the operation and logistics side of the manufacturing.
And your expectation, and I don't pin you down on ratios or anything like that, but your expectation for this location is about the same, or is it about?
My expectation would be to remain the same ratio. It really would. If for us takes off, right? Like, okay, maybe our ratios change a little bit, but the amount that we're able to produce here it's negligible compared to what we're doing right now. If we get to that level, we'll be finding a piece of land, and who knows where that's really cheap that we can produce at a very high level.
The business model question was the other.
Oh, about just, our thoughts on the food and stuff. The food trucks, we did put in a future kitchen. These guys didn't want a production brewery. They wanted a brew pub or a restaurant of some kind, and they fought us pretty hard on that aspect of it. And we were adamant that we at least wanted to give a test to the food trucks. We aren't restaurateurs. I've never run an operation of a restaurant. Never really worked at a restaurant. I worked in service industry, but it's a different ballgame. Kitchen staff and spoilage. I mean, it's just a different thing for us. And so we tried the food trucks, and a lot of people were skeptical, and it's worked out magically. We had that future kitchen in case we wanted to pivot.
Put a kitchen in Swanee?
In Swanee, there is a kitchen, full hood, everything. It was grease traps, the whole 9 yards, because we weren't sure, even ourselves, if the food truck model would be successful. And we wanted to give ourselves some flexibility to have a kitchen if that's what the customers wanted. And I could ask all my customers now, there's no chance anybody would want a kitchen. They love the food trucks, like they mentioned. People look at our food truck calendar and come on specific nights because they follow these food trucks. And you guys have Food Truck Tuesday, you know how that is. Those places, certain ones are fan favorites, and people look forward to those nights when they can go get that. It provides that flexibility inside the tap room. You can move around. We have big communal tables. There's not a hostess. There's no one sitting you anywhere. You show up, you seat yourself, or you come to the bar, you get a beer, and you go sit down wherever you like. You go to the park, you can sit on the sitting wall. You go in the parking lot, we got picnic tables set up. You sit with your friends, and if you want to move around, there's a band. You can go and stand up and jump around if you want to do that. It's very informal, but it's communal. And I think that's the important part of the business model, is we don't want it tied down with strict restrictions on flow of movement and just the overall atmosphere.
And the communal part, restaurants. I've seen restaurants try to have communal. Does here.
It's all, metal stools and stuff easily moved around. Oh, there's an 8-person table. Well, we got 12 people. They'll just take a couple stools and throw them up to the table, and now everybody's sitting together. I mean, and that's kind of what it's, or everyone's just standing around and they all crowd around the same table. there's no formalness to it. And that creates that aura that I think they're speaking to. It makes it kind of unique. That you don't.
Variety, it's gonna add something different in your bathroom.
So the customers pay for their food at the.
At the food trucks, yes, ma'am. It's no different than if you've been to Food Truck Tuesday here, where you just go up to the individual trucks and they have their menus, and that's a separate transaction. We have nothing to do with it. It's a symbiotic relationship for us. They have food, keeps our customers happy. We have people hanging out at the brewery, they get food sales.
But we also see people bringing food from other restaurants inside.
Right. Lots of
Like
mellow
his-
mushroom, lots of
His
Believers.
kids doesn't like whatever the meat is. Brown bag deli food. Right.
Any other questions? I have one last one. Did you bring any samples?
I can't believe it.
I would want to know if he was old enough to work in.
There we go. That's a compliment.
Well, we wanted to go into this discussion again and get some specific questions answered, and I can't thank y'all enough for making the drive down. We really appreciate you being
Yeah,
here.
thank you very much.
And Aaron, thank you.
If you have any questions, Marty Allen, City of Swanee, feel free to email me, feel free to give me a call. Denise Brinson, happy to do it. Anything different from me without, as I said, I didn't know Aaron was going to be here, but I would have said.
Well, he lives right down the street.
Yeah. Kind of easy.
A lot of looks at my car in the driveway with my big StillFire.
I told Scott Andrews that y'all were coming tonight. He said to say hello.
Oh, very good. I was gonna actually mention Scott, but
Yeah, these guys worked with Scott in Swanee when he was in Swanee.
while I was sitting here, he was emailing about luncheon.
He's great in Covington.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, appreciate y'all.